All right, now that we've looked at how to calculate a confidence interval for means, we're going to take this one step further and look at comparing the mean confidence intervals for two or more groups to be able to make some conclusion about those groups and how they differ from each other on a particular variable. So if we want to determine if two groups differ from each other on a variable of interest, we would plot their confidence intervals around their mean along the same scale and then compare them to each other. So if the mean confidence intervals do not overlap, we can be relatively confident that they differ meaningfully from each other on this particular variable. If they do overlap, it's possible that they do not differ from each other on this variable and in a meaningful degree. Let's take a look at an example of this. So here we can see some data pulled from a study looking at coditine. Now this is a chemical that is used as a marker for exposure to tobacco. So if we're going to be looking at this, you would be able to use it to determine if the person has been exposed to tobacco. So looking here, we can see that the population for smokers, as indicated by the pink line, does not have any overlap with the people that were exposed to smoke but are not smokers themselves. Okay, so we can see that there's a meaningful difference, we would say, between those two different groups. Their confidence intervals are not overlapping at all. Now, people who are exposed to smoke, we can see their confidence interval overlaps to a certain degree with people not exposed to smoke, so there's some similarities. However, when we look at this, we can see that the predominant amount of people exposed to smoke in their ratings of coditine is still much higher than people who are not exposed to smoke. So we would have serious questions there about there still being meaningful differences between those two groups. So not only are we looking at whether or not their mean overlaps, their difference in their mean. So in this case, people not exposed to smoke would have a mean roughly of 25. People exposed to smoke would have a mean roughly of 75. But again, because variability is so important, we want to look at their confidence intervals as well. When we do that, we see that there is indeed some overlap between people not exposed to smoke and people exposed to smoke. So it's not an all or nothing sort of view, which can have the false conclusion you can come to if you work solely with just the mean. So this is how we would use confidence intervals to make some assessments regarding similarities or differences between two groups.